Hey, welcome back to the channel. Yes, it is. It's Thursday, November 30th. So today I thought we'd talk about, Darren had a question on snowblowers, which is a good time of year to talk snowblowers, right? And speaking of snow, I had mentioned we weren't getting any snow. Well, we got a light dusting last night. Not enough for folks to get the snowblowers out, but that's part of our issue right now, is that there's no snow, so nobody's got out any of their winter equipment, their snow blowers. Once they get them out, they'll start breaking them, right? But in the meantime, we have picked up other work, which I'm blessed. You know, he works in mysterious ways. And I'm going to talk about some of the tough decisions you as a boss, as an owner, have to make. Alright, stay tuned. So let me first start off by saying thank you to all you guys that enjoyed seeing deer, and if you haven't got one, hope you do get one, that they're really good eating. And like I say, my son got one last week, I've got one, so now Claude's got to get one, and my grandson Connor's got to get one. I have Doberman, but I can't see using it on does. I try to pick out one of the mature does that is no longer able to have fawns, and you'll see her throughout the season. She's just running around. But I haven't seen that animal this year, and I'm not willing to take, a healthy doe out of the herd right now. See, I kind of manage them like I do my beef cows, in a sense. With my beef cows, one bull can breed all the cows. You don't need, like I had at one point, 12 bulls in there. You don't need that many. You only need one, and he can do the job. Unless they all come into heat at once, which is very rare. But usually it's one here, one there, and he gets a break in between. So if you have a dozen or more bucks on a 500-acre chunk, you have way more than enough breeding stock to keep your does bred. Now, I know I don't own the deer. The deer come onto our property and then off, and this and that. And especially the bucks, they'll travel 7-8 miles in search of a hot doe. So sometimes the bucks that we see aren't even ones that have been living on the farm. But anyhow, let's go to what Darren, I hope I answered some of your questions, but I'll be honest with you, it's hard troubleshooting something unless it's sitting right in front of you. And I know you're going to get some help here with the other guys. See, I always start with the engine, because if you're having problems with the engine bogging down, then, is it under horsepower? Did it, the engine that was on it, was it like a 9 or a 10 horse and you put a 5 or a 6 horse on it, or did they put a 5 or a 6 horse on it? Because that makes a difference. Your two-stage snowblowers take more power than your single stage, if that makes any sense. Single stage, it just comes in and flips it. The two-stage, it comes in, gets it going, then shoots it, basically. And that takes horsepower. But why I asked first about the engine is, with an engine being boggy, if it's the same size engine, then my first choice would be compression, which you should always do anyways. It may have borderline compression where it's running, but the minute you put it under load, it starts to die out, like it has no power. Because that's what some of them that will do it, that are borderline or just below where it should be, is they will sit there and run all day long. rev them up, sit there and run all day long. But the minute you put them under a load where they have to work, then they just die right off. And till you take the load off, and then it brings it back. The other thing I mentioned was plugs. Do you have a plug that's breaking down or fouling out? That's the next place I check. Since I'm doing compression, I'm going to check the plug. And for $4, I'm going to throw another plug in there. That's how I run the shop here. That way I don't have to worry about that plug. And then from there, like I say, it still all comes back to what did you have on it before? And why did you have to replace the engine? I've seen customers have issues with it bogging down, thinking it's the engine, so they swap out the engine and they still have the same issue. Well, that tells me it's not the engine issue, it's down around the auger systems or the belts or the pulleys, or there's so many things that can cause a machine to bog down. But if I could get that engine where it's running and I can rev it right up and there's no hesitation, and she's fine until she gets under a load, I wouldn't bother with the carburetor or anything like that. It could be possibly not allowing enough fuel coming in, but you would see it when you put full throttle. Ooh, excuse me. When you go from idle to full throttle, you should hear a hesitation if it's carburetor, because it should spit and sputter because it can't keep up. Once I've ruled out the engine, I'm going to go internal on the machine, and that a lot of times requires to break it apart, and that is taking the head unit right off with the auger assembly. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in there. Everything from the gears and the drive and the aluminum housing, they're a brass gear, to bearings, bushings on the drive, on the auger systems. Like I say, there's so many things that could be causing this issue. I would need to have more information, and I would have that information if it's sitting next to me in front of me, because I'm going to try all those things quick. I'm going to try, does it come right up full throttle without a problem? Does it only have problems when it's under load, when I engage the augers or I engage the drive? Is it when I engage the drive or the augers? You got to separate those two also, because the drive may be screwing you with bushings and bearings, and if the drive is fine, then the auger might be screwing you. You might have a bent auger or a bent shaft that's causing the issue. So I'm curious to find out from you, Darren, what you found out, and if you could let us know, because we as shop owners, mechanics, and DIYs, do-it-yourselfers, that we're always willing to learn from somebody else. And that's the key, is once you shut that door on the learning process and you feel like you know it all, I think you know nothing. Because everything is changing and adapting constantly. Look at our vehicles. 30 years ago, we could work on it with a screwdriver, a pair of pliers, and a piece of wire. Now we're screwed. Everything is got to hook to a computer. You got to be a computer genius with a laptop. And while we're on this subject, it just popped into my head here, what I think might be a good idea, I'll let you guys decide, is if you guys are having problems with something, post it. If something has, got you scratching your head and hitting your head up against the wall and you just can't get it to figure it out, if you can post what the problem is as far as what is doing or not doing. And I can even go into making a video on something to show you how I would go about doing it. I do have an extra snowblower, pressure washer, lawnmower, so forth. And we can make it a teaching lesson. I know some of you guys want to see intermediate, and that's fine. And I have no problem showing you the intermediate level. But I also know that there's a number of people that have been coming to the station recently that don't have any history or background, but are trying to work on things or trying to fix things. And, something that seems really minor to us can have a homeowner in turmoil. And I don't know about you guys that are homeowners out there, but I'll tell you, give me your stuff and I'll work on it all day long. But you give me something of my own that I'm having problems with, and it's like you're too close to it. You're invested, and it drives you bonkers. So a lot of times Claude will say, leave it alone, let me take a look at it before you go too far on it. And usually it's something minor, and it's something that even with my experience I overlook because I get frustrated with it. So let me know what you think on that idea as far as, having it be like a sounding board for people that are having problems with certain pieces of equipment. The only thing I don't think you can do here on YouTube is like post pictures. And if it's something that you're really interested in, what I can do is, either post my email address, which is I don't care, and that way people can send me the photo and with their username, so I know what the issue is and what I'm seeing in the comments, and we can tackle those. But yes, we're going to start looking at some of the intermediate stuff that you guys have got the basics down, and now you're wanting to dig into it. And let me see where we can get that lined up and get that going. All right, so the other half of the show is with business owners and even in bosses with employees. Sometimes you have to make that tough decision, right? That's what you get the big bucks for, right? But it's true. You have to do what's best for the business. But I've always felt not only do I have to do what's best for the business, but I have to do what's best for the employees, okay? They're invested. They're my friends. They're almost family. We spend so much time together. And when we're struggling a little bit here, they pick up the slack. They're willing to do whatever it is, like land clearing, just so that we're paying bills. They do not want to see me not make it. But Claude has said more than once, if it gets down to that wire of where you're going to start going backwards on it, and you're taking money out of your savings to pay us, and this, then you need to lay us off for a while until you have to work. And you need to let us fend for ourselves. I mean, Claude, he's 71, so he's got Social Security. But the other ones don't have that. But like he mentioned, there's a lot of places hiring all the way around that are retail. But one of the hard things I have is once I lose that employee, I probably will never get that employee back, right? But that's how I come into it. I look at what's best for the business and the employees at the same time. And some of the calls that we make have to be based on factual information, not what ifs. One thing I've never been is, it's all about the money, because it's not. If you make it all about the money, then you have a whole different take on things. Like if you got an employee during the learning stages that's not getting a job done as fast as, let's say, Claude, and you're paying that person that hourly rate, and where you could have it done quicker with Claude, well, I take into consideration that person is still in the learning phase, a journeyman stage, apprentice stage, what have you. And during that time, I can't expect them to do stuff like a full-fledged, experienced mechanic. What I can expect them to do is be asking a lot of questions from Claude. What do I do in this situation? Okay, I got this done, now what? And Claude's good. He gets pulled off jobs constantly where he's got to go over and look at something that the other person has got issues with, and then gives him advice on how he would proceed. And then he goes back to doing what he's doing. So when I look at him, I can't just sit there and look at, well, how much is he getting accomplished in an hour? Well, he just spent half an hour with the other employee showing them how to do this to bring them up to speed. So if I was just dollars and cents, I'd probably say, well, neither of them are putting out what they should be putting out. And, chop, chop. See, my brother-in-law, he was a certified public accountant. And he worked for a big wire firm. And he was one of the best individuals you'll ever meet. He passed away during COVID. And he knew his stuff. He basically run that business because the owners were non-existent. So he not only was he the chief financial officer, but he basically was the CEO. He was running the business. And one of the things that used to bother him the most was he would stand out there on the balcony, because it was a big shop, a huge shop, and he would watch, and he would see workers visiting, and he thought that if they weren't visiting, they could work faster and harder, And I explained to him, I said that you can't expect an employee to come in, clock in, and then do nothing but just keep their mouth shut and work the whole shift and then clock out and then go home. They won't come. It'd be miserable. But if they can come to a place where they have friends, family, and they're still getting their work done, no harm, no foul. Are you still getting the production you need out this door? And I asked him one time, I said, look, you guys had hard times here and there. They do a lot of government contracts. And I told him, I said, during the hard times of where you need to get these orders out, these contracts filled by a certain day, do you see the employees step up and knock it out? And he said, yeah. Then that's your trade-off. As your employees know, when you have to have something, you need it, and they're there for you. And they'll even work past their shift to get it done for you. That tells me that the employees value the business and the business owner and the people that are there. I know a lot of employees that it gets 3 o'clock and that's quitting time. I don't care what's on their plate. They're gone. Even if that job needed to be done that day, they're gone. It's like, not my problem. Those guys don't last long here. Don't tell me it's not your problem. If you're the mechanic working on it, it is your problem. You need to fix it. That's your job. So then you end up having somebody else step in and finish it with them working over. So it's just, you have to, it's a balancing act of, the business, the employees. For me, it's about the two together For my brother-in-law, he was more about the bottom dollar because that's what he was. You know, he great numbers man. And the thing about him that impressed me the most as I sat back and I watched that man over the years, you know, I'm biased. He was my brother-in-law. But over the years, what impressed me the most was he was so much like me, and that he didn't compete with somebody else. That was never his goal. It was like he competed with himself to do something better than he did today. All right? And those are the guys that are going to go places, that are not competing with everybody else to make them feel bad or show them up or show that we're superior. He competed with himself every day to do better and to make it easier, to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what I've done for years. You know, I can remember when I was in my 20s, I was competitive. But it's kind of like that aha moment in my 30s where I just said, you know what? I need to compete with myself to make myself a better husband, a better father, a better this, a better that. And you're not doing leaps and bounds when you're doing that. You're doing steps, right? So if you're a boss, if you look at it that way of where I'm going to try to be a better boss than I was today, and this is how I need to slowly get to that point. And a business owner the same way. And that goes for you guys in everyday life. You know, if you could do that, follow that philosophy of competing with yourself and not with others, you can only way is up. You're making yourself a better person, a better rounded person, a smarter person. See, some people that are very competitive, if they don't have much competition and they're winning all the time, they'll stop exercising as much, they'll stop doing this, they'll stop doing that, because they don't need to put the effort in to, you know, beat or win or, you know, win the championship or this or that. So they're basing their lives on something else, which is, and to me, you know, you're chasing your tail. Now, had he based it on, I want to be a better person, a better, you know, athlete, a better this, a better that, he would have continued working out. He would have continued doing X, Y, and Z, but he probably would have been doing mentoring programs, helping younger kids that you know, want to get into that sport that he's in. All these things. It changes your whole view and your outlook on life. All right, so keep the comments coming. Let me know what you think of the idea of doing like an episode, having somebody post a problem and having us all kind of jump in, see what we can do. And enjoy your Thursday. All right, have a great day.